If you're in certain areas of New York City, you might notice these stickers popping up on street signs. They're part of a new initiative known as Slavers of New York. The trio of activists behind the project explains.
Slavers of New York is what we've sort of dubbed as a guerrilla education project, naming and identifying and educating the people in the community about who the streets that they live around are named for,
with the goal of exposing the legacy of racism and slavery in New York City. And we do that by taking historical data and presenting it to the people in public spaces.
Educating as many New Yorkers as possible, providing as much access to that information, and igniting conversations around the history of slavery in the city.
And that's usually by means of stickers that we paste all over public spaces in the city.
Once we've selected the street that we want to highlight, then we select one or two big facts about that person to put on the sticker. Our first one, which I think really, obviously kicked everything off, we picked a major street in Brooklyn, which is Nostrand Ave. Nostrand Ave is like 7 miles long in Brooklyn. And what was really sort of egregious to me and what's outrageous to me is the fact that Nostrand runs through several predominantly Black, historically Black neighborhoods. And John Van Nostrand and the family Nostrand were very instrumental in the slave trade in New York.
There's Stuyvesant. So Stuyvesant Street in Manhattan, as well as Stuyvesant Avenue in Brooklyn and the neighborhood of Bedford-Stuyvesant, Stuyvesant High School. So there's quite a few different places, not just streets, in New York named for Stuyvesant, which is Peter Stuyvesant, the first director general of the colony when it was a Dutch colony. And he also was a large slave trafficker in the late 1600s, early 1700s, and also enslaved many people on his farm. So that's a sticker that we have put up in both Manhattan and in Brooklyn.
We have stickers that we're almost ready to print for Wyckoff, Lefferts, and Vanderbilt, which are all Brooklyn.
And Cortelyou is our most recent sticker, and that's for Cortelyou Road in Brooklyn. It's a relatively short street, but we've put up quite a few stickers on Cortelyou Road as well. The Cortelyoos were a large landholding farming family in Brooklyn and were slave owners as well.
Some of these folks are just, people who had land, people who just had money. Why does that get remembered? Why does that get into the culture?
What does it mean to live on a street that carries the name of someone who enslaved people?
It's just a reminder or proof of how pervasive the history of slavery and the impact of slavery has been.
These names are the streets that are the names that we repeat on a day-to-day basis as we move through our city. Who are the people that were glorified and why?
I think so often what happens is that when these conversations come up around the history of slavery in the US specifically, it's very often focused on the South. And while that's understandable in a way, it was something that very much occurred in the North, was very prominent in New York City. New York City was at one point, aside from Charleston, the largest slaveholding city in the country. And I think a lot of New Yorkers don't know that, or they don't think about it. And that history is not really shared or talked about much.
We're giving the information so that we can all collectively agree that structural change is absolutely necessary. And the past will provide us the window to the future.
Our stated goal has never been to actually change the names of the street. We would like to stay above those sort of controversies, but the fact of the matter is a lot of people don't know what's around them. If you don't know what's around you, then you have a hard time affecting any sort of change.
This is Inside Edition Digital.